So if you missed it, I'll just say it again. We're currently doing something new. We're basically doing a peer review on a piece that is basically, well, a really simplistic way to look at logic and rationality. Just a brief overview of things like validity and soundness, trying to explain them in real-world terms. And what we're hoping for is any input any of you out there can give, and obviously Philip and Dave, any corrections, any ideas, or anything like that. But the idea is it is going to be simple. So there might be some ideas that you have that I might turn down just because they are a little bit too advanced. What I will do, though, if you've got any links that you think would be useful, any pieces you've written or someone else has written, so that they can understand logic to a higher level once they've understood this, then please send them over. I've already included a couple at the bottom, but you know, that's what we're going for. Dave, if you can keep an eye on the chat as it comes in, because whilst I'm doing this, I can't actually see the chat. And here we go. So, what does it mean to be logical? Why should we be...
Atheism.
Sorry?
To follow Atheism.
Yes.
Yeah, that was no article needed.
Why should we be interested in logic? What does it mean to be logical? How does logic tie into rationality? Questions we should be thinking about, especially if we view ourselves as logical and/or rational people. So what does it mean to be logical? Well, something is logical if it adheres to the rules of logic. There are different types of logic. As an example, for a syllogism, it would be syllogistic logic. Consider the rules of chess would apply to playing chess but not drafts. Both types of board game on a similar board, but different rules. There should be an R in there. Validity and soundness. There can be some confusion around what it means to be logically valid and what it means to be sound. Valid. Logically valid is speaking more of the structure. The premises do not have to be true, neither does the conclusion. They just have to entail said conclusion. For a syllogism, it is this format. If A, then B. A, therefore B. That simple. To think about validity in a different way, let's consider chess again. Moving the rook, that's the castle one, diagonally is not a valid move. Moving it forward, back, left, right from its start point and not going through things is valid. Soundness. So now we have an idea about what validity is. We have to consider what makes something sound. Not only does the structure have to be valid, but the premises have to be true. If we consider the chess example again, we would be thinking of a move that was not only valid, but also good. Whilst we are stretching the metaphor, the premises that need to be true would be along the lines of the move is well thought out, we're not moving to be captured unless it's a trap, we're not leaving ourselves open for an attack anywhere else, our king is still protected, etc. If we move the rook into a position where it is easily captured and it wasn't a trap or anything like that, we would say the move was unsound, even though it was valid. So the same can be said for syllogisms. There is a valid structure to be had, and then there is the judgment of if it is also sound. An example of a sound syllogism is, all mammals are animals. Elephants are mammals. Elephants are animals. So what about rationality in all of this? Rationality is, at least in part, the act of reasoning using the rules of logic and probability theory, holding consistent and coherent beliefs, and having no strong, convincing evidence against your position. So, if you want to be rational, it would suggest that, at least where applicable, we ought to use the rules of logic. Similarly, if we want to play chess rationally, we ought to use the rules of chess, and reason in a logical and consistent way in planning out our moves. We might not always get it right, but we ought to learn from that experience too. The same can be said for other things too. If there's a type of logic that applies to your discussion, it would make sense to use that logic. It might not get you to truth, but it will at least ensure a clear, concise, logically valid structure that is easy to work from. This is why when discussing a proposition, propositional logic is useful, at least to get to the various answers. Many folks on the internet discuss the proposition, God exists, or as the propositional question, does God exist? Yet seem to skip over the logic part as if it is unimportant, proceeding with vague and ambiguous definitions, followed by discussions which become awfully circular, or resulting in folks just saying, prove it, and throwing memes out. From the moment you have nailed down your specific definitions, a valid structure, and understand the overall format and positions one can hold, you can have a discussion for the justification of various answers people can give. And then there's the links. So we've got an intro to propositional logic. It's one called You Won't Believe This. I was actually thinking maybe I should rename that at some point, because I called it that just to see if it would draw more people in. There's also the podcast, Fresh Air podcast that we did called Propositional Logic and Beliefs. So that's the podcast version with, as in audio, with a PDF, and that's a video version that's on YouTube. It also has the PDF as well if you want to check it out. Beliefs, Language and Logic is an overview of logic, language and beliefs. I think that was written by you, wasn't it, Dave?
Yeah.
There's a couple from the Great Debate community called The Basics of the Laws of Logic and Breaking Logic, Playing with Modal Logic. So what's this normative thing about anyway? And it's just talking, it mentions things like the laws of logic in it and as well, so I figure normative language and its ties to logic. Normatively atheist, so why the belief God does not exist definition of atheist is considered normative. And a wiki page list of logic symbols. Honestly, it's really useful to have that, because anytime someone starts using symbols and you just go, fuck, I don't know what this one is. I've got no clue what they're saying, because it is all just jumbled, garbled nonsense. And it's not nonsense. It's not nonsense. It's shorthand. It's really useful to use logical notation, but it's not useful if you don't understand it. It's like if Philip started speaking Italian right now, Dave and I would be going, what the fuck's he going on about? It just sounds like nonsense to us. It wouldn't be nonsense, but it would sound like nonsense to us.
It would be word salad, because I don't understand it.
Exactly. And because you don't understand something doesn't actually make it word salad. It can make it seem like word salad. And that's another thing that you see on the internet. People don't understand something, so they just immediately assume it's wrong. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah.